So let's discuss feature codes. Feature codes we discussed are accessed through the feature button and then a number, or by programming them to a key. The codes themselves actually can be multiple different digits in length. So there are some single digit codes, like forward was feature 4, get it 4, forward. Feature 5 is redial. There's 2-digit codes like 85 we briefly touched upon was do not disturb. There's 3-digit codes. We went over 811, which showed us the call information for the silent answer line. And we'll get to that later because that actually does a little bit more than that. And then there's those ones that began with a star. So star 1, star 2, and star 3 programmed our buttons, and star 0 showed us what the buttons did. Let's go into some of the other ones that begin with a star, because those are all mostly local preference settings. With the exception of ones that begin with star 9, all of the other star features solely apply to this phone. So star 0 applied to the buttons on the phone, so did 1, 2, and 3. Let's go into feature star 4, which is user speed dial. So feature star 4 basically lets us enter a handful of pre-programmed numbers that we can dial at any time by putting in a speed dial code. So let's say I want to enter a speed dial on code 71. Well, I guess we'll have to type it in again. User speed dials begin at 71 and go up. The first 70 speed dial codes are system speed dials. They're global to all phones. So I have to start at 71 if I want to program a user speed dial. This works exactly like programming external auto dial. I can pick a line. I'm sorry, that's not a line anymore because we moved the buttons around. So let's fix that real quick. So assholes in the right place. We need to exchange buoy and do not disturb, and I believe we also need to exchange transfer and line 1. Alright, is everything right the way it's supposed to be? Yes, okay. Sorry about that. So if we program a user speed dial, I can pick the line and I can enter a bunch of digits and hit OK. And that's entry 71 is stored. And feature 0 is actually the way that you dial speed dial, so we'll go over that one right now. Feature 0, and you enter the code, so in this case we did 71, and it will dial the number. It's exactly the same thing as using an auto dial key, except you don't have to use a key, and you get significantly more of them. And the system speed dial is accessed the same way. If I do feature 0, I can put in a system, so 0, 0. No one's programmed that. Actually, it might be 01. Yeah, 01 is what it starts at. And no number stored, because system speed dials have to be done on the back end by the administrator. So feature star 4 programs user speed dials. If you were to enter an invalid code, it actually doesn't even let you type it in. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 is the first one that actually does anything. And if you were to hit OK without putting a code in, just like on programming buttons, it clears the button. Here, it erases the speed dial, even if nothing was there in the first place. Now, feature star 501 says in English. Basically, what feature star 50X does is they set the language. So 1 is for English, 2 is for French, because Nortel is a Canadian company, so French comes before Spanish. Notice that not only does it change the language, function, it actually changes the date format, the time format, and a couple other things. So feature star 503 is Spanish and Espanol, and ago to 8. So feature star 504, you might think, well, that's also Spanish. No, feature star 504 actually just tells you what language you're in without changing it. I don't know why you would need that, because it's very obvious what language you're in just by hitting the feature key, but if you really wanted to know what language you currently have, you can do feature star 504. And if I do feature star 501 and change it back to English, you'll see that now feature star 504 just tells me that I'm in English. I do want to bring up one specific thing about this feature code because, like I said before, for the most part, dialing the numbers in is the same as programming it to a button, but in this case it's not. So we have our blank feature button up here, so I'm actually going to program it with feature code star 501. And up here, if I press it, it changes to French. And if I press it again, it changes to Spanish. And if I press it again, it changes to English. So it actually rotates through them. So that's one behavior that's different. That doesn't happen if I type the number in. If I type star 501, it's English. And if I type star 501 again, it's still English. And no matter how many times I do feature star 501, it's still in English. There is no way to, with the numeric feature code, to rotate through them. You have to assign it to a button to be able to do that like that. And it's also worth noting that I can't assign any of the other one. Let me get back into English first. Oops. I can't assign feature star 502, 503, 504, any of them. I have to do feature 501, and it basically rotates through any of them. So let's unassign that button because I don't like that there. And that is the language setting. Feature star 6 is one of the first feature codes I found out about when I was in high school, and feature star 6 changes the ringer. So you actually get 4 options. There's 1, 2, 3, and 4 actually doesn't show up on this phone. And if you're a Nortel person, you might be saying, well, wait, why doesn't 4 show up? I've never seen a Nortel phone that doesn't show 4. Well, I'm actually using 4 as a distinct ring, and when you use 4 as a distinct ring, or any of the numbers as a distinct ring, they're not available to be set by end users. So I'm actually going to go in right now and change that so that that is not the case, because I do want to show you what ringtone 4 sounds like, because it sounds really ridiculous. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4. And keep in mind that the pattern kind of changes a little bit depending on whether it's an internal or an external call. So, for example, feature star 6, ringtone 4, sounds like that if it's constant, like an external ring. That's how the phone would ring if it was an external call. But internal calls are double rings, so it sounds like this. Kind of interesting. I'll go through them all real quick. This is ringtone 3 double ring. Ooh, hold on. Turn that up. Here's 2. And you know about 1. Before I get to star 7, I'm going to cut right to star 80, because star 80 does almost the exact same thing, except you can't pick the ringer. Feature star 80 just makes the phone ring constantly, so you can change the volume. I don't know why this exists, because you could just as easily do feature star 6 and change the volume, or change the volume anytime the phone is ringing. Like that. So, that's a useless feature. I'm assuming the only reason why it's a separate feature is that so that it can be, oh my god, what happened here? Is so that it can be automatically, or so that it can be assigned to buttons, so you could have a, you know, let's say a program. Actually, you know what? I don't think that feature code can be assigned to buttons. It can't, actually. And one of the things that I wanted to discuss with you is that most of the feature star codes can't be assigned to buttons. And in fact, I'll show you that right now. I'm going to try to assign a code to this button. And notice that when I press star, I can't do 1, 2, 3, 4. 5 I can do, because 5 lets me do 501. But if I do anything else, 512, I can do 52, and I'll explain what the 52 series is later. But 53, it's actually the same thing. 54, 55. I wonder what 55 does. We'll get into that later. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, can't do anything there. 501 you could do, that was the language rotation. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. None of these do anything. Can't do star 6. You can do *7, I'll explain that in a second. Can't do 8 anything. 8 doesn't even show up, and neither does 9. So, it's not like you could assign the volume button to, or the ringer volume to a button, so I don't know why it's a separate code. Alright, feature *7 can be assigned to a button. It's one of the few star ones that can be assigned to a button, and it's the contrast. And it's pretty much no frills. You have a down, you have an up. It goes from 1 to 9. If you didn't have a soft buttons here, you just press the number. So I'll show you that on a single line phone, or a single line display phone. If you do feature *7, contrast level 4, you can do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And the 0 star and pound don't do anything. I like 6. And you release it to set it. Same thing with the ring, *6, 1, 2, 3, 4. You can release it. You can also, technically the right way to save a setting is hold. Hold usually is the save button on phones that don't have the soft keys, so your ring is stored. Get out of here. Alright, we got 3 more features to go through. The next one is dial mode. Feature *8.2. We went over *8.1. That's move lines. Let's go over *8.2. This is dial mode. We have 3 choices: automatic, standard, and pre-dial. Standard is what all of the phones are on by default. Standard basically means if you press buttons, nothing's going to happen unless you're on a line. If I want to dial 303, I have to pick up a line, pick up the handset, do something to get a dial tone first. I can't just start dialing. Pre-dial is what you'd expect on a modern office phone. I can dial the number first, 91800-222-1234, and if I pick the phone up or pick a line, then it dials the number. And in this case, that's not the correct number, but let's say I just want to dial 30. Oops. So I can actually backspace 303, pick up the phone. That's pre-dial. The advantage to pre-dial is that I can edit the number, so if I fuck up, I can backspace it. I believe I can also backspace with the volume slider. This is another feature that is very peculiar, that is very niche, that you probably won't find anywhere else. You can use the volume slider, or you can press the backspace button. So on a single line display phone, you can use the volume slider to edit the number. And when you're ready, you can press a line button. If you wait long enough, it'll actually say select a line because, you know, in case you're an idiot and you thought the call was going to go through completely silently. The other option is automatic dial, and basically what that means is that the first time you dial a digit, it will just pick up the normal line. It's basically the same thing as pressing speaker the second you press the first digit. So 3, now I have speaker on and I'm on intercom and I dialed a 3, so 303 just dials it. I prefer automatic dial because if I'm typing the digits wrong, it's easier just to hang up and retype than it is to try to edit it. And most of the time you're just dialing internal extensions anyway, at least I am, so, boom. Boom. So, that's automatic dial. I'll show you the same thing on the single line phone. It's exactly the same, except you don't have the soft keys. So if I do feature *8.2, automatic dial. Here I press pound to rotate through them. So let's say I want pre-dial. I hit hold, or I guess release. Either way, whatever you leave it on is what it stays on. And now I can pre-dial, so 301, and I can pick it up. Straightforward. I can edit it with the the volume down key. I guess the volume up key doesn't do anything because you can't go forward and backspaces. It doesn't move the cursor, so there's no point for you to press the up key, just the down key. And I guess while we're here, we'll figure out how many digits this will store up to. So there's 12, 24. So it'll store up to 24 digits at a time, and I'm pretty sure it's the same on this phone too. That one has automatic dial, so never mind. And the last two that I'm going to show you involve the call log. So we'll get into the call log later, but feature *8.4 basically lets you decide whether the call log, which is kind of like your caller ID or your missed call log of who called you. You can log all calls. You can not log anything. You can log if you didn't answer, so missed calls that I didn't answer, so someone else answered them, or log everything. So by default, you'd probably want to log everything, but the Nortel systems have a really low amount of memory on how many, log entries they'll store, and it's shared system-wide, so you actually kind of have to allocate how many, and I'm kind of going into the back end here, but the way it works is that you get a certain number of log entries, and you kind of have to divide them out between all your phones. So you might have one receptionist that has 400 history slots, so she can store up to 400 log entries in her log, but maybe, everyone else only has 10. You kind of have to distribute them like that, because you only have so many that you can have total within the whole system. There's a lot of really bizarre, arbitrary limitations in Norstar systems. The limitations on things are nowhere near like the actual technical limitations. So like, for example, we saw speed dial earlier. The fact that user speed dial happens to go from 71 to, 99, 98, 90, 95, I think. Actually, let's see. 94. It goes from 71 to 94. That's completely arbitrary. The Nortel system could completely, it's running on a Windows NT machine, the BCM50. It could 100% store hundreds of speed dials if they wanted to. I don't know why they're not. It's just arbitrary limitations. Maybe they want you to pay more money to go to a different Nortel system if that's a requirement for you. I'm not really sure what they were thinking. This system was engineered in 1988, the Norstar, the original Norstar systems, but most of the features are newer than that. A lot of the stuff is early 90s era stuff, so I don't really know. But that's another arbitrary limitation. The only other feature I want to go over today is log options feature *85 or log password, and you can put a password on the call log so that if you want to review who's been calling you, you can actually have to prompt for a password. So maybe for really sensitive businesses where like where you have celebrities' numbers or things like that, or very sensitive information, the government, you might want to do that. I don't know. Can't imagine anyone would really want to use that. That's the end of this part, and in the next part we're going to discuss transferring and conferencing, and that'll take up the entire video.